All right, guys. So, the 6 C's of confidence, and this is obviously my first module for the new class. So it's again, thanks for being patient, guys. I was actually pretty sick the past few days, so excuse me if I have a couple sniffles still the tail end of my cold here. We're going into the 6 C's of confidence. It was actually the highest rated module from our last Charisma Decoded class. So, not to set the ball too high, but hopefully you guys will get a lot out of this. Obviously, like I mentioned earlier, this one's going to be even more dense because I'm going to try to not take 2.5 hours to teach it. So take good notes if you can, and obviously since we put these things up, you guys can have a repeat viewing if you find that you are having trouble keeping up with what I'm talking about. And of course, Q&A at the end as well. So if you guys do have any questions, save them for the end, and I'll go through that. So let's just jump right into it. All right, so I started off with a quote by Bruce Lee, which says, "One will never get any more than he thinks he can get. You have what it takes. Look back and see your progress. Damn the torpedo. Full speed ahead." And the reason why I put that is because a big part of confidence, if you look up the very definition of confidence, it's essentially just believing in yourself. And that's sort of the, I think what he's really getting at here in this quote is that you'll never actually achieve anything that you don't think you can achieve. And this is something that I think is, anyone that takes this course, Charisma Decoded obviously, or even a boot camp, one thing that I always talk about is that how important beliefs are and how beliefs affect everything you do. Perception is reality. And if you don't believe you can be good at something, you're not going to be good at it, period. So it's massively important that anyone taking this course or getting involved with other Love Systems products, there needs to be at the very beginning a belief that you will get better at this and that you can get better. Because if that's not present, you're not going to. It's as simple as that. So anyway, so that's why I put this quote. We'll jump back in the presentation here. So let's get into these 6 C's. And give me 1 second here. All right, so the first C is charm. Now, this one is probably one of my favorite ones. I threw up a bunch of examples here of, examples of charming guys in popular culture and in the media and stuff. And I mean, they're worth, I'm not really going to get into too much of these guys individually. But in the top left, if you guys were curious who these people are, or at least since I didn't label them, you got Warren Beatty and Jack Nicholson. Great examples of classic sort of charm there. The Jack Nicholson being more of a bad boy. Warren Beatty was more of a, how to best to describe him. He basically did a lot of practical jokes and had fun. Mostly kind of one of those guys that marched to the beat of his own drum. Robert Downey Jr. and George Clooney on the bottom, you guys probably already recognize. I'm not going to get into them too much because I think those are examples that anyone watching this would probably be pretty familiar with already. In the middle here we have, shit, I forget his name. He's the singer for the Cars, and he's like one of the ugliest guys ever. The Cars were an 80s new wave band that were extraordinarily popular, but a lot of people, him and actually Billy Joel, who's right next to him, a lot of people think, oh, these guys are musicians, so of course they can get really, really hot girls because they're popular and famous and all this sort of stuff. But the thing is, okay, so that woman that he's with, that's actually, I forget her name as well, but she's a supermodel. And the thing is, when you're playing at that level, and Billy Joel here being sort of the best example of this, more so than the guy's name I can't remember, although I'm sure some of the comments probably tell me later. When you're playing at that level, supermodels, they can get anyone. They can get A-list celebrities, they can get sports stars, they can get anybody. So simply being a singer, or again, I guess in this case they're both singers, being a singer in a band, even if it is a really popular band, is not on its own enough necessarily if you got a shit personality. And especially if you're ugly as fuck, which both those guys are. So there needs to be more to it. Billy Joel, he dated the who's who supermodels, starting from when he became popular in the 70s to currently. There's got to be something there, right? I remember watching videos of Billy Joel, and as soon as I saw the first video of him, I was like, oh my god, This guy's amazing. He has so much charm. It literally just oozes out of him. If you get a chance, maybe even after this session, go on YouTube and type in 1985 Billy Joel interview. It might even have been posted in the Facebook group at some point during the last Charisma Decoded, but there's an interview he does with, I'm pretty sure it's Meredith Vieira, although it doesn't say. She just looks like a young Meredith Vieira, where she starts off this interview all proper and very like, you know, so Billy, tell me, what happened when blah, 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 blah. And within 5 minutes, he's got her basically keeling over, like sitting on the couch, like rocking with a big smile pasted on her face, giggling, being completely unprofessional, like a schoolgirl that's, you know, going gaga over him. And it was all had to do with his personality, because like I said, he's not a good looking guy. He's short, he's homely looking, he's not, you know, not a good looking dude. So all had to do with his personality. So I studied all these guys relentlessly, trying to figure out what it was that made them so attractive. And I think I broke it down to a certain extent. So we'll get into that a little bit. All right, so let's go back to the presentation here. So sorry guys, I'm just going to close this door because it looks like the cleaning lady's coming by. I just don't want the noise here, so just give me 1 second here. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so let's jump into this some more. All right, charm. So I put a picture of Errol Flynn here. He's the quintessential guy that I always look to in terms of, you want to look at the high watermark of this stuff, like a guy that's good with girls. He would be it. I mean, the term "in like Flynn" came from him. You know, to be in like Flynn is in like Errol Flynn. I recommend reading his book, My Wicked, Wicked Ways, autobiography. Amazing read. Basically just a story of all the adventures he got in through his life and how he was this, you know, movie star kind of cad who just, I mean, it's actually kind of redeeming in a way because he was only really successful in the early part of his career, and then he kind of ran out of money and didn't have any of the advantages that he had before, but still lived this insane life. And anyway, worth a read if you guys get a chance. All right, the first point of charm I want to talk to, those of you that saw some of the promotional videos for this course may remember this, but it's introducing yourself to everyone you expect to meet more than once in your life. And very, very important. So, you know, I think I said in the promo video, it doesn't matter who this is. It's if anyone you know that you're going to meet again, whether it's someone that's your neighbor, whether it's someone who's, you know, works at the coffee shop by your house or the grocery store or the convenience store, make a point to get to know them and introduce yourself. So really the way this works is you simply say, like when I meet someone that I know I'm going to meet again, I'll just say, you know, hey, my name's Derek. I actually just moved in. You know, I'm probably going to see you. I'm probably going to see you again. What's your name? You know, and they'll say. And by the way, this is for guys and girls. It doesn't matter whether it's a dude at the convenience store you're buying a banana from, or a woman at the coffee shop, even an old woman. So I'll say, yeah. So my name's Derek. You know, what's your name? And you know, she'll say, oh, my name's Samantha. Nice to meet you, Samantha. And you know, like that might be it, to be honest. That might just be, oh, nice to meet you. Pay for your thing and then go. But the next time you come in, you know, maybe you push it a little bit farther. So the next time you come in, it's kind of like, Samantha, right? You know, is it because you remember her name? And she may kind of smile. She probably won't remember your name. Doesn't matter. You know, remind her what your name was. And then maybe ask her how her weekend was, how her week is going, small little chit-chat things. And then again, you know, pay for your things or whatever, and go. Next time you come in, she's probably going to remember your name, and you'll notice there'll be a little bit of a smile there, right? And again, I mean, you can turn this into flirty conversations if you want. If she is, you know, good looking and someone you'd like to flirt with, you can certainly do that. But really what this is about is just becoming a guy that can talk to anybody. And I mean, I can give you guys some examples of you know, situations. Like I had, there was a falafel restaurant when I first moved to Toronto, that had this woman that worked there named Mibrek. And when I first moved to Toronto, I you know, ate a falafel at her place, and it was amazing. So I went in and I told her, I said, oh, I just ate your falafel. It's like the best falafel I ever had in Toronto. And because it was literally a block from my house, I used to go in there all the time, the way back for bars, and because they were open late and whatever. Every time I went in, I talked to her a little bit, asked her how she's doing and stuff. Now, I found out that Mibrek, you know, this 50-some-year-old woman had just moved from Egypt. She ran the little restaurant with her husband and her sister and her brother-in-law, and they were struggling and whatever. Made great food though. So after a while, going in for like months, I guess at this point, it would have been 2 or 3 months, She'd like when they ate dinner in the restaurant. If I came in around that time, she'd invite me to eat dinner with them and stuff, and got to meet all of them. And then, at one point, she said, "Oh, I have Derek. I want to ask you a favor." And I said, "Yeah, anything." And she said, "My daughter is actually coming over from Egypt because we're doing well enough now that I can bring more of the family over. She's about your age, and she doesn't know anyone, obviously, in Toronto. Would you, take her around and, show her Toronto?" So I said, "Yeah, of course." Now, Mibrek was this, 50-some-year-old Egyptian woman that has those high cheekbones and nice skin and stuff that the gorgeous women from that area have. So I figured, you know what? Her daughter is probably going to be pretty cute. And she was. She was gorgeous. I ended up dating her. It didn't work out because she had to move back to Egypt after, I think 6 months or something. But it just goes to show you, people will give you their own daughters if you make an effort to become, part of the community and make an effort to get to know them and talk to them. So this has far more reaching value than simply becoming a more charismatic person. These people will literally, give you gifts and do things for you. Not that that's why you should do it, but it just goes, when you make this effort to become connected like that, there's a lot of other benefits as well. All right, let's keep going. Treat everyone as a future close and trusted friend until proven otherwise. Give everyone the benefit of the doubt. When you meet someone, assume they're going to be an awesome person. Don't ever start meeting someone, an interaction with someone with suspicion, unless there's a good reason for it. You should treat everyone as if they're going to be a future close and trusted friend. You never know. You might be meeting your future best friend. But give everyone the benefit of the doubt, because simply taking that attitude towards them when you meet them, so opening them very warmly, when you talk to them, you're introduced to them, you're like, "Hey, how's it going, man? Good to meet you." And, sincere positivity there. And that's going to make them reciprocate that. It'll put them at ease. It'll make them instantly like you because you took that approach instead of being guarded and a bit more reserved, as men tend to be, especially guys that are more insecure. We don't, "Oh, I don't want to appear too, like I like this guy too much. He's going to think I'm weird or gay or something." It's bullshit. Just be positive and be confident in your own positivity, and you'll find that you'll see it sent right back to you. March to the beat of your own drum. And this has a lot more to do with, don't be one of those guys that is like those Me Too guys. When people say "Oh, I love this music." "Oh yeah, me too. I love it too." "Yeah, I really don't like this other thing though." "Oh yeah, me neither." You should be someone who's not afraid to express an opinion that maybe isn't popular. To a certain extent. Don't go spouting your political and religious ideas necessarily when you first meet someone, but certainly you should always have your own voice that gets communicated when you speak to people. And you should do things because you believe in them, or you should talk about things because you believe in them and because you have a certain opinion about them. And it's not to say that you're going to get defensive if someone doesn't agree with you, but it's that you speak from a true sort of belief when you speak about things. I'll get more to this later, but for the most part, for now, just understand that people like people that sort of have their own sort of character. That's, people really respect that because it shows confidence in a way. They're not just trying to be like everyone else. They're doing their own thing, and that's something people tend to admire. Living your life as a charming man will enable you to become one. So the idea behind this one is that if you start living your life as this guy that's going out of his way to be sincere with people and meet people and all this sort of stuff, what you'll find is it starts to have an effect on you. You actually become a more charming guy as a result. Because what happens is when you're going about your business, running your errands and whatnot, and you make a point of talking to all these people, people always say, you're not going to meet the woman of your dreams probably in a bar, right? She's probably going to be a lady that walks by you on the street. And if you're going about your day talking to everyone that you meet, and you just have that positivity going throughout your day, it's a hell of a lot easier to work up the nerve to say something to that girl as she walks by, maybe after she walks by, than it is to simply walk through life seeing beautiful women and being like, "Ooh, wow, she's really pretty. I wonder what I would say to her if I had the nerve to do it." If you're just already in that social mood, you just become that charming guy. You'll find that you'll see her walk by, and before you can even think of what to say, your mouth is already moving, and you're saying something. You'd be like, "Wow, where did that come from?" Well, it's one of those things that it's actually, I don't know how to describe it really, outside of the fact that you actually grow faster than your brain can actually comprehend, in the sense that you become more social and more charismatic quicker than you become conscious of it even happening. And you'll find that your mouth and your brain moves in a way where you may not even recognize what it's doing. But because you've sort of trained it all day doing these things, it starts doing it, and you sort of happen to find yourself in conversations where you're like, wow, how did I even get into this situation? This is amazing. And it's why I used to say this all the time. When you believe you can get better at this and you make a conscious effort to do it, what always happens to every single guy I've taught that's gotten good at this is you wake up one day and you realize how far you've come, and you realize the progress that's happened. And it's really hard to sort of put into words, because you see the change happen from day to day, but you don't realize how much it adds up until one day you sort of think and you're like, wait a second, my life is tremendously better than what it used to be. And it's because I've taken action all those times, every day, and those little tiny pieces of action every day has amounted to something much better, much greater. And that's a great feeling. And you guys will all get there, but it starts with this. It starts with just having the ability to talk to anyone and being open to it. Getting out of that shy, introverted sort of frame of mind or headspace. And those of you that are introverted, although it may not seem like it, it's probably, you're going to call me a liar, I'm actually introverted. Been professionally diagnosed as introverted. I do really good one-on-one. I completely lose my energy in groups. If I have a day off, I'm going to be inside reading a book or watching a movie or playing a video game or something. Don't like crowds, hate crowds, get really uncomfortable in groups. You may not think that, because obviously what I do, but I learned to control it and get better at it. Now I see it almost as like I got to turn it on a little bit, so it's still very, very tiresome, but it can be overcome. And to be honest, most of our clients are introverted, and they overcome it as well. So if you're sitting there thinking, oh, I'm an introvert though, I can't do this shit. Yes, you can. It just takes more effort. It's going to be a lot harder for you, but you can do it. All right, so let's get back. Second C, conviction. It's the repetition of affirmations that leads to belief. And once that belief becomes a deep conviction, things begin to happen. Muhammad Ali. This actually relates to what I just said. It's that repetition of affirmations. Now, affirmations in this case might be, telling yourself over and over again, but it's also the actions that you take. All those little actions become affirmations over time. They're little moments that prove to you that you are a social, charismatic person. And all those things add up, and they become a deep conviction, which is the second C here. And conviction we'll get into here. So conviction. Picture on the left is Sean Connery and I believe Tippi Hedren. It's from the movie Marnie, an Alfred Hitchcock movie. Really great classical example of conviction in that in the movie, Sean Connery plays this character, this sort of suave business owner who actually gets stolen from. Tippi Hedren plays a thief, believe it or not. Tries to steal his money, and she's kind of crazy. I won't get into the plot too much, but essentially, Sean Connery has conviction that he's going to attract her and marry her and win her over. And the entire movie, she fights him. She's kind of crazy too, so it's not like fights, like literally fights. And he essentially wins her over by having this belief that he's going to win her over. And that's sort of what the idea of conviction is. Grandfather game. Okay, so the idea behind this is that if you guys ask, depending how old you are, but if you ask your grandfather, and me being about 33 years old, my grandfather, he's dead now, but he would be in his late 70s, and that generation of guys, if you ask them, how did you meet grandma? How'd you meet your wife? They usually tell this story, and you can ask both of them, grandma and grandpa, but they usually tell this story where the grandfather might say, I was walking down the street one day and I saw her. She came out of her car, and I knew right then, as soon as I saw her, that she was going to be my wife. And I ran up to her and I said, "Excuse me, miss, but you're absolutely beautiful, and I had to tell you that. My name's John. Nice to meet you. I'd love to have your number so I can call you. And you know, and the story usually goes like, if you ask the grandmother, she'll say, oh, I rejected him about, you know, a dozen times. I said, no, I'm not that kind of lady that just gives her number out on the street to a man. And, you know, he followed me to where I was working. Sometimes they sound like creepy stories, to be honest. But it just goes to show you the power of conviction. But they'll usually say, oh, you know, he followed me. I was working at the flower shop and he followed me in, and you know, and then he'd show up there every day. He'd show up and say, oh, you know, I'm just coming back to ask you for that number again. And, you know, eventually I gave it to him, and we went on, you know, several dates, and we were married. It's like 6 weeks later, something crazy like that. But you always hear the same story. It's the story of the guy noticed her, had a conviction that he was going to marry her, that she was the one, and he believed it. And even in the face of rejection, he still persevered and ended up winning her over. Now, you don't see that kind of stuff happen too much nowadays on both sides of the coin. You don't see guys having that sort of conviction, but on the other side of the coin, you don't see women rejecting guys in that way so much. Like in those stories, it's always that the grandmother probably did like them, but because of the standards of society at the time, you can't give your number to a gentleman on the street. They're going to think you're a hussy, you know. But nowadays, obviously, that's not the case. And when a woman, if she likes you, she'll give you her number. So we don't have to deal with at least that element of rejection, the polite, keeping up appearance rejection. But obviously, we still face real rejection, which I'm sure the grandfathers did. Our grandfathers did at the time as well. But the idea behind this is this, and I might get into this at a later point. I can't remember what my next points are, but having that conviction, believing that you actually are going to get her, makes her attracted to you. Not like forces or anything, but it makes her start, she'll notice that and be like, wow, this guy is, I guess it comes across as confidence, but it's also even something even deeper than that. It's almost like they almost buy into it because it's such a strong emotional sort of communication that happens, where she can see it in your eyes, like, this guy believes this, like this guy has conviction that I'm the one. Maybe I am the one for him, you know? To be honest, this is normally how ugly dudes get better looking girls. Like ugly dudes that don't at least learn from us. They have conviction. That's usually the biggest part of it. They believe they're going to get them, and that's why they get them. So anytime you see an ugly dude with a gorgeous girl, it's conviction. Almost always. That's what it is. And maybe there's sometimes other elements at play. Maybe he's rich, or he's, you know, it's got some story that involves her, you know, him and being a big part of her life or something. But for the most part, it's conviction. So very, very, very important. All right, let's keep going. Believing what you say. So this is the essential what conviction is. It's when you say something, you believe it. And this is the hardest part. And this is the reason why, you know, like old school game, learning lines, it's not the best way to learn. And the reason is because if you're still thinking in your head, oh, I'm using a line, I hope this works, excuse me, it doesn't work. You're lacking conviction. If there's no conviction, it's really hard to get attraction. A woman has to know that you know what you're saying means something, that there's a belief behind that. Because if there isn't, then, you know, you're kind of a charlatan. You're kind of someone who's kind of a creepy guy, right? A guy that says one thing that means another, or believes another. That's the literal definition of a creepy guy. So a big part of this conviction is not just like believing what you say is going to work, but actually believing what you're saying. So it's not to say that I'm going to say she's the most beautiful girl in the world because I know that she's going to like that. It means, no, you actually do think she's the most beautiful girl in the world. And there needs to be that element of conviction there, that belief. Otherwise, the whole thing falls apart. Changing the voice in your head. So it's not, I hope I can do this, but I know I can do this. This should change like everything in your entire life. Language is super important. Not just the language of how we speak, but the language of how we think. You need to start working on how you talk to yourself. Are you the guy that says, like, you know, I hope I can do this, or I hope this works out, I hope I don't mess this up? You need to start changing that inner dialogue. Having that confidence in yourself means at the very start of this, changing the way you talk to yourself, changing the language. So you have to say, no, you know what? I'm going to nail this. You know, I'm going to slay this task I have to do, right? I got a big, big report you got to do for work. It's not like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? Like, no, I'm going to nail this. And you have to repeat that. It's like the affirmations Muhammad Ali spoke about in that quote. Because that actually changes the way that you it changes the way you act. If you have that, you say it to yourself, that inner dialogue, you start to buy into it. And what happens is it changes the way that you act. It changes the way that you come across. You start having conviction. And as soon as you have conviction, man, I'm telling you, I'm a man of science and a man of logic, but the man that has conviction and the man who doesn't, regardless of their abilities, I'm always going to put my money on the man with the conviction that he's going to do it. It doesn't matter if, to a certain extent, I mean, they can't break physics, defy physics, but the guy that believes in himself is always going to have an edge in terms of whether or not he's going to achieve what he sets out to do. Because I don't know what it is, but there is an effect that has on the physical world when you believe you can do something. I've seen it happen so many times. Mountains will move in order to make it happen. It's weird, but I've seen it. I've been doing this for 10 years. I've seen it so many times, and it almost has given me some sort of elements of faith, I guess, because I've seen such crazy things just by having these beliefs. So in any case, I will tell you that it makes a big difference. So change the language, how you speak to yourself, and you'll see a big positive effect. You must first convince yourself if you ever hope to convince others. If you don't believe something and you're trying to convince somebody else of something you don't believe in, it is immediately apparent. It's kind of like, the guy that is really insecure and is trying to act tough in front of his, maybe trying to start a fight with a dude or something. And he's kind of like, oh yeah, man, you want to go? You want to go? But inside his head, he's thinking like, oh fuck, I really hope this guy doesn't say yes because I'm going to get my ass kicked. Like, those are the guys that are easy to read, and the other guy on the other end of that's going to be like, nah, fuck this dude. Yeah, let's go outside. And probably kick his ass. Because you need to have that belief. And that's why, like, in that same situation, the dude is, you see these two guys before they get into a fight kind of going at it, that verbal sort of battle. It's always the guy that's really laid back that's the scariest dude. The guy that's kind of like, yeah, let's go outside. Because that guy believes it. He knows he's got something. And the other guy that, is a witness to that, and I've been that guy. I've been on both sides of that equation. That's a scary thing, especially if you think you're a bigger guy. But, you have that small guy that's like, yeah, let's go outside. Come on. It's kind of like, does he, like, got a gun or something? Like, what's going on here? Something's not making sense. Because he has a conviction that he shouldn't have, which means that I'm not getting the whole picture here. Anyway, in the sense of meeting women and stuff, you need to have the conviction that you can attract them. You need to believe that. And if you don't believe that, the whole thing falls apart. So you have to convince yourself first. The third C, courage. I'm making pretty good time, actually. All right. So a nice quote from George R.R. Martin, who is the author of Game of Thrones, if you guys watched the TV show or have read the books. Brain thought about it. Can a man still be brave if he's afraid? That is the only time a man can be brave, his father told him. I think it's a great little quote I love for just explaining what courage truly is. It's not about not being scared. It's about doing things despite your fear. And I guess that's what I'm going to say next. Okay. I included a picture here, a still from the movie Tombstone. Great movie. Just a great 90s Hollywood popcorn western, which has Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer here as Doc Holliday. Some really great scenes that show courage and, to be honest, conviction as well. Even though they are actors acting in a movie, they're good enough actors, they still have that conviction that gets communicated with their performances. And if you look at, in particular, there's a great scene that's on YouTube of Kurt Russell going into a bar when they first get to Tombstone. He goes into a bar, and there's a scene with Billy Bob Thornton kind of being a bully, running the poker table in this bar, kind of slapping people around and being a dickhead. And he scares away all the customers. Anyway, check out the clip on YouTube. I'm not gonna do the whole clip here, but a great scene where he shows this courage, I guess, but also this masculinity where you can just see it in his eyes. He doesn't even say that much. I saw these really cool, badass quotes like "Go ahead and skin that smoke wagon" and shit like that. But you can see the fear on Billy Bob Thornton's face. This guy is trying to appear this tough guy, and he melts in front of him. He almost doesn't know what to do. And as someone, even though it's a Hollywood movie, it's a script, as someone who studies this stuff and who's put a lot of thought into how those interactions actually play out in reality, that's pretty close. That scene gets it pretty close to accurate. In that, if that played out in real life, I guess in the 1800s, since the language was based around those times, that would have played out probably pretty similar to the way it did. And it's a very, very interesting scene. But it's a great movie overall. I recommend watching it. And that's why I threw up that picture there. So do things despite your fear. And this is a big one. I kind of accidentally clipped ahead here so you guys will know the next point coming up. But do things despite your fears. So I'm actually attracted to things that scare me. Because I'm telling you guys, when you can actually conquer a fear, it's one of the best feelings in the world. Now, one of the fears that I know all you guys have, to a certain extent, is going to be approaching women. You know, talking to women you don't know. I'm telling you, when you can go up and approach a woman and, you know, say something, let's say, very direct. So maybe you go up and you say, "Excuse me, I just saw you from over there, and I think you're really cute. What's your name?" And if she responds, excuse me, positively to that, she says, "Oh, my name's Ashley. Nice to meet you." There's like this voice in your head that's like, "Fuck yeah, I did it. I'm a man." And it feels really, really, really good. And what you'll find is you get addicted to this feeling, which, I mean, there's a reason why there's like, you know, adrenaline junkies is a thing. Is because it is a very addictive sort of feeling. But yeah, do things despite your fear. It's often the things that scare us most that enable us, you know, it's those things that enable us to grow the most. So the things, you know, if you're the guy that doesn't maybe stick up for what he should, you got to start doing that. You want to be the guy that, you know, can talk to the hottest girl in the room, you got to do it. And that's going to be tough. But that's what this is all about. It's about facing your fears, you know? And I've always said this for years now, you know, probably since I started teaching, which is, although we teach guys how to talk to girls, what we really teach is how to deal with fear, because that's what it is. And I think that success with women is the smallest thing you can take away from this course, because that's not really what it's about. It's about dealing with the fears that stop you from becoming the man that you would like to be. And the one thing you have in common with everyone else taking this course is that fear of talking to women. But what are the other things? We're going to talk about that in some later modules. But what I want you guys to start thinking about now is, what are the things that scare you? Why do they scare you? And how can you get over those things? Because it's not to say that to be a confident man is to have no fear, which is the reason why I put that quote, but it's a man who's conquered his fears. So although he may still be scared, that knee-jerk reaction to not do something is having control over the voice in your head, conquering the voice in your head. That is the biggest skill you can learn. That voice in your head that says, don't do it, the one that leads to procrastination, the one that leads to not talking to the people that you want to talk to, whether it's the woman in the bar or the boss at the you know, the work function, or, you know, asking for a raise, or speaking up for what you believe in, standing up to somebody that maybe said something rude to you or someone you love. That voice that tells you not to do that, you need to be able to conquer that at all times. Not just times when you're really mad or when you get pushed to a level where you can do it, but at all times you can conquer that voice when it's important. Not to say you should flip your lid all the time, but and not even that that's what it would be if you did conquer that voice. Like I said earlier, a lot of the times it's a very calm, sort of assertive tone as opposed to an explosion. But that is one of the biggest skills you can take away from this. And if you can do that, and that alone, man, that's going to change your life. And it's not to say that it's easy, because it's not. Just that one thing may take you a while. I mean, I've been doing this for 10 years, and even I still have moments where I regret not taking action when I should have. You know, so it's something you constantly work on. But it is one of those things that, you know, I look back on the man that I was and the man that I am now, and I have a lot of clients that do the same thing. It doesn't matter how old you are. You know, there's still a tremendous amount of growth you can make. And when you look back and you see, you know what, I just did something in this moment that the guy that I was a year ago, you know, a week ago, a couple months ago, would never do, and I did it. That's a great feeling. And it all comes down to conquering that voice in your head. All right, let's get back to this. I want to be the guy who can blank. So fill in that blank. Who do you want to be? Success with women is one part of this, but what are the other ones? I want to be the guy who can talk to the hottest woman in the room. I want to be the guy who can stand up for what he believes in. I want to be the guy who can do whatever it takes, however difficult or uncomfortable, to make the best life for my loved ones. I want to be the guy who can, I mean, sometimes they don't have to be that, like, that deep. Sometimes they can be like, I want to be the guy who can appreciate fine wine. I want to be the guy who can speak several languages. I want to be the guy who can ride a horse, horseback ride. So they can be skills, they can be beliefs, they can be anything. But I want you guys to start thinking about what those blanks, what goes in those blanks for you in particular. And I mean, this will be something I'll come back to at the end of this little module here. So just start thinking about that. It's not fake it till you make it. It's do it until you are it. There's a big difference there. The first one, fake it till you make it, again, it has to do with language, right? So it's like, oh, I'm faking it until I make it, with the hope that making it is that thing that's, one day you'll get there. Do it until you are it is a more truthful statement, because I'm telling you, if you do something long enough, you become it. The more you do this stuff, one day you're going to wake up and it's going to all the pieces sort of align and you'll get there. So do it until you are it. That should be a mantra for all you guys. You're not there yet, that's okay. Just keep doing it and you will get there. But it's about taking action. In some cases, massive action. Okay, so this is what I actually just mentioned. This is my definition of a man, for me personally. Doing what's best for your loved ones, no matter how difficult, uncomfortable, or painful it is. Now, loved ones here, like you are a loved one, right, for yourself. So this means doing what's best for yourself as well, no matter how difficult, uncomfortable, or painful it is. And it's going to be. I'm not going to lie. You guys that are, maybe this might be the first course you've ever taken with love systems, or the first sort of taste of kind of what we teach. Man, you're going to be put through some scary things if you're following this course and some of the homework we give. Really frightening things. The things that are the scariest things in the world to the better part of the population. And that is talking to strangers. It may not seem like much on paper, but those of you that have done it in the act, it can be a very frightening thing. And that's something that you have to do as a man. There's this. I think that in Western culture, there's not really any. There's no such thing as a rite of passage, which they have in Native cultures. Most of the world in Native cultures, and I sort of had experience with this where I grew up because there was a strong Native culture there, and we kind of learned in school with Native studies and things. But a rite of passage is essentially when you become a man, and the age is different depending on the tribe, but usually around 14 to 16 years old, you go through what's called a rite of passage, where they're different everywhere, but usually involves something like going out in the woods and alone for a week. You got to survive and make your own shelter, get your own food and water and things like that. And you got to meditate or speak to the gods and find your path. Sometimes it's mutilation. Sometimes it's usually a very scary thing for a 14 to 16-year-old, or even a grown man, to be honest. And you go through that, and when you come back to the tribe, you're a man. But it's not just that. It's not just you're a man because you did that thing. There's a huge ritual about it, right? Like you start acting like a man, because in the tribe you see how the men act and you see how the boys act, and there's a clear distinction. And after the rite of passage, you're no longer a boy, you're a man. And so now you act like a man. And from before that week in the jungle or the mutilation and after, there's a shift completely in their personality. And we don't have that in Western culture. So in the past, wars, I think, have acted as that for other generations. World War II and Vietnam and the Korean War and the Gulf War and whatnot. And that sort of acted as a rite of passage. But our generation, the millennials, haven't really had anything like that, right? So it's, in a lot of ways, I think, taking a course like this or taking a boot camp with us is a rite of passage, because it forces you to sort of face the music. And like, look, you want to be a man, you got to do these things. And nobody said it was going to be easy. It's not. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. But do I regret it? Fuck no. No way. And I will, trade in, all the crappy experiences and the really terrible experiences that I've had along the way in order to do it all over again. No questions asked. Because it's led me to become the man that I am. And that's something that I would do over and over again every time. So that's what it really comes down to. You have to do these things, and it's going to be scary, and they're going to be hard, but too bad. That's the way that it is. And we have to sort of suck it up and be like, you know what? Yep, it's shitty, but I'm going to do it, and I'm going to come out the other side a better person. And believe me, you will. And it's something that you start to enjoy. You start to enjoy it, to be honest. The fear never goes away. It's not like those emotions don't go away. It's just you learn to appreciate those emotions. It's kind of like the nasty cheese or a food you tasted the first time. You're like, oh, what the hell is that? But you get appreciation for it, and you're like, yeah, it still kind of tastes awful, but I like the taste of awful now. It's sort of the thing. Anyway. All right, 4C, compassion. We got the Dalai Lama here. Whether one believes in a religion or not, and whether one believes in rebirth or not, there isn't anyone who doesn't appreciate kindness and compassion. And this is something that I believe is absolutely true. And it's not to say that you should be a complete pushover and be super sweet and kind all the time. Certain situations require you to not be sweet and kind. But for the most part, your default should be that. It should be, I mentioned this earlier by giving people the benefit of the doubt. But it's less about just being a nice guy and more about just understanding people and understanding from their perspective. This is the big reason why a lot of guys out there are frustrated with women. It's because they lack perspective. They get rejected in a bar and they think girls are bitches. They think, man, fuck this bitch. She just rejected me, doesn't even know me. What a bitch. And it's hard to see things from her perspective because, we're hurt. It hurt our ego. But I'll get into this. So I put a picture of Mr. Rogers on the left here. Those of you who grew up in North America will probably recognize him. He's the host of a children's show in the 80s and 90s. Actually, probably even earlier, maybe the 70s as well. He's pretty much like he's dead now, unfortunately, but when he was alive, he was pretty much like the icon of compassion. The guy was a saint. And actually a really great video, Mr. Rogers, where he had to go to the Senate to advocate for funding for his public broadcasting or whatever, his children's show. And they basically cut funding. And it was a pretty clear-cut thing, there's no way he was going to get that money because it was like $20 million or something. But he went to a federal judge in the Senate and he pleaded his case, and they recorded it, and you get to see him talk to this judge, and man, it's pretty interesting to say the least. I do recommend watching it. It's a long watch. I think it's 15-20 minutes or something, but it's worth watching just to see sort of his character and the way that he communicates, how this hard-boiled New York judge basically melts in front of him because he can pick up on the sincerity behind his emotions that just... Anyway, worth a watch. So the first point here is loving, understanding, and respecting people. This starts with yourself. So you have to see everyone as... I kind of see everyone as maybe going through their own sort of story. And although they haven't had the same experiences as me, they have had their own troubles and their own things to deal with. And I always try to look at it from their perspective. If a girl rejects me, if I go up to a girl, a woman at a bar, and I go up to her and I say something like, hey, I just saw you over there and you're cute, what's your name? And she says get the fuck away from me, you creepy asshole. Not that would probably ever happen. It's maybe happened to me once in my life when I was mega drunk or something. But if that did happen, though, actually it did happen once when I wasn't drunk, almost to that verbatim. And my reaction to that was essentially oh my God, are you okay? Because that's such a strange reaction. But even if that did happen, even in your imagination, you could think, why would a woman react like that? What is it that made her do that? Well, maybe she just had a huge fight with her friend. Maybe her boyfriend of several years just broke up with her. Maybe she got cheated on. Maybe any number of really negative things happened that made her lash out at you like that. Is that understandable? I mean, it's certainly not something that I don't know if it's socially acceptable, but it's certainly understandable. You know, like I could be like, well, the poor girl, because it has nothing to do with you. And in almost all these situations where you do get a really bad rejection like that, it's never about you. It's about the situation, which, although you may have initiated, it didn't necessarily start when you started it, you know? That situation could have started 4 hours ago when she got in a fight, and now it's ending with you trying to hit on her. And that's what, the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of her sort of state, and she just exploded at you. Okay. Well, you know what? Being a man means you could just take that and not be okay with it, I suppose, but certainly be okay enough to just not take it personally, right? So in those situations, in the actual situation when it happened, I actually looked at her friend and I said, is she okay? Like, actually sincerely concerned. And her friend actually said, like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. She just, I think it was her boyfriend broke up with her or something. And as soon as I did that, her friend actually was like, oh, yeah, it's okay, Jennifer, listen, I'm really sorry. No, she's right, blah, blah, blah. My boyfriend, he's being an asshole. It's not your fault. And she warmed up because I showed a bit of humanity. But, it could have went the other way. If I was like, man, fuck you, bitch, something like that, like maybe a lot of guys would do, man, it could have turned into a much worse situation. Not only for her, but for me, for everyone around, the venue. It could have been bad. So understand people. Always come at things with like love and just sort of respect. And it may just be that they're shitheads, Fair enough. There's lots of those around too. Don't waste your time talking to them. Just be like, cool, have a nice night. Walk away. All right. You help, doubled up here. All right. So you help those that need help because you're a good person. Even when people, so there's two of them here. So actually, I'll start on the first one. Yeah, you help those that need help because you're a good person. So if you're talking to some women and, a guy there, so let's say there's a couple of girls you're talking to, and, maybe it's let's say it's your buddy. And your buddy is there with you and he's like, hey man, I really like this one girl. And maybe this is the same girl that's kind of touching you a little bit and flirting with you. And you think to yourself, all right, he likes her, so what? She's flirting with me. I'm going to take her. I mean, maybe you guys have the kind of relationship, you and your buddy, that's cool. But for me, I'm going to help my buddy out because that's better game in the long run. You're more of a man when you can sort of pass on the sure thing to give your buddy a chance because he he had the respect to propose it to you, right? And maybe ask you for it. Say, hey man, you mind if I try to go for this one? I'm really digging her. You're like, yeah man, go for it. I'll try to help you out. You start talking to her friend. And maybe it doesn't work out between them. And maybe you'd be like, dude, sorry man, do you mind if I jump in? He's like, yeah, go for it. Whatever. But sometimes it's even a complete stranger. I've had situations where groups of women that I went and talked to, and there'd be like a guy in the group, and be like, hey man, I'm really trying to get with this girl. I work with her. Do you mind if you help me out here? I mean, like, hell yeah, man, I'll help you out. And I'll just hit on the other two. I don't care. You have to have this sort of, what do you call it? This, there's a term we use. Essentially, you have so many options you don't care. And that may not be true at the moment that this happens to you. But if you just take that belief, that you just have sort of always an endless amount of options, then you'll find that perception becomes reality to a certain extent. And I guarantee you the friends will pick up on what you did for the guy and dig you. And the girl that actually maybe was flirting with you will probably like you more now because you did that to a certain extent. It may not work out with her. Maybe your buddy does a good job and he gets with her. But you build some karma points there, I would say. And next time it happens, maybe it's the other guy that's going to do it for you. Maybe not even the same guy, but somebody else. So what goes around comes around. And so you help them because you're a good person. Even when people are at their worst, there are likely understandable events at play that led to that. So this ties into what I said earlier. A woman's having a bad night, she's having a bad night. You understand that. It's not you. Don't take everything personally. Really, it's not. It's people. no one goes to a bar or goes out to have serious, conversations with people necessarily, right? It's light and fluffy. So if someone comes up and is immediately mean to you, it's nothing personal. There's something else going on in her life. Sincerity, you speak from true emotions. Again, I talked about this earlier. When you talk about things you're passionate about, you speak from true emotions. So, it's not saying that you should get worked up or anything, but like when you have an opinion on something, it's actually your opinion. You're not saying it because it's popular or because everyone says that, or you think people will like the answer. You say it because you mean it, and if you don't, then don't fucking say it. It's one of those things that I think a lot of weak guys do. They just want to, not rock the boat. They want to be agreeable, and they don't understand that it actually works against you for the most part. People see it as weak. So speak from true emotions. Not to say that you should bring up really polarizing opinions about shit and expect people to love you for it. That's not really what I mean by that. I just mean that don't be afraid to disagree, and don't be afraid to speak unpopular opinions. Again, outside of religion and politics and stuff that people get really upset about. But ideas of just to give you an example, I've had situations where with women where they may say, let's say I'm talking to them and it's getting flirty and I'm touching their back or whatever, and they say, "Oh, you touch a lot," and I say, "Yeah, it's because I like you," and they say, "Oh, well, I'm not that kind of girl." So most guys would be like, "Oh yeah, no worries on, hey, I'm not that kind of guy," or whatever. They'll buy into that. But for me, if a girl says "Oh, I'm not that kind of girl," I'll probably be like, "What do you mean? What do you mean like that kind of girl?" And she'll say, "Oh, I'm not the kind of girl that just has her hands all over a guy at the bar, or will be seen making out with a dude." And I'm like, all right, if you're shy, that's okay. But for me, if I like a girl, I show it. That's the way that I am. That's the way that I work. Does this make you uncomfortable? And she says yeah, it makes me uncomfortable. Well, I'm not going to keep doing it if she's uncomfortable, so it's probably a situation in which we're not going to get along. But to be honest, most of the time, women say that because they think that's what you want to hear. Women think, oh, most guys want a classy girl. And they equate classy with the girl that's sort of a prude and whatnot. But as soon as they realize that you're not that kind of guy, you'll find they often flip. And they're kind of like, well, I don't know. It's not the same with you because you're different from most guys or something. They'll find an excuse to make it okay for themselves. But it's one of those things that's a trap that a lot of guys fall into. So keep that in mind. All right. The fifth C, cool, calm, and collected. If you got to think about being cool, you ain't cool. Keith Richards, again, pretty much the authority on cool, I would say. And he's absolutely true. The very introspective act of thinking about if what you're doing is cool or not automatically means you aren't cool, because cool people don't think of that. Cool people don't worry about how they're coming across. And cool here, it's not so much, being cool is an attitude, and it's an attitude that everyone can adopt. It's not difficult. It just means, it's basically accepting yourself. Accepting you are who you are, and it's not, I think a lot of guys have this idea that, they'll say being cool is kind of being an asshole, being cool is not giving a fuck, being fuck you, and being this kind of like a jerk. That's not what being cool is. Being cool isn't even indifference. It's indifference to the insecurities that most men have, I guess would be the way to put it. So being cool is not caring if you did something weird or said something that maybe was inappropriate. And the truth is often, it's not the act of saying something inappropriate or saying something weird that makes women think you're not cool or weird. It's the feeling that you have immediately after it that makes them think that way. And the best example of this is running out of things to say, because it's something that probably all of you have experienced. You're talking to a group of people, and all of a sudden you run out of things to say. You don't know what you're going to say next. And there's that awkward pause where you're like, so what are you guys doing tonight? Right? And it's that moment when they see the fear in your eyes is when they lose their respect for you. It's right then. Not when you ran out of things to say, not when you paused, not when you didn't say something for a couple seconds. It was the moment where you had the fear run over your eyes. Boom! You're insecure. You just lost all the attraction. And respect, if it's guys. This isn't just something that with women, this is with guys as well. Being calm, cool, and collected means, you know what? I ran out of things to say. I don't care. I don't care that I ran out of things to say. I'm comfortable with this. It's seeing situations that could be uncomfortable and appreciating them. Like that gross tasting cheese. You just sort of sit back and instead of retching and being like, oh my God, what do I do? How do I get out of this? Spit it out, spit it out. You just be like, meh, I'm just gonna chew on this. And it doesn't taste good, but I'm gonna force myself to sort of enjoy this. And just, you know, kind of feel the flavor a little bit. As bad as it is, I'm gonna learn to appreciate this. If you can do that, you will never have an awkward silence again for the rest of your life. I guarantee it. So it's just about accepting those situations. If you say something really dumb, if you just like respond to something and you're like, oh my God, I just totally insulted her. Who cares? You said it already. What good is stressing out about it going to do anyway? Just be okay with it. Be like, yeah, sorry about that. Happens, right? And they'll use your attitude and your emotion as a baseline for how the conversation should continue. So if you act like you just said the worst thing in the world, that's how they're going to take it. If you act embarrassed and like, oh my God, this girl's going to think I'm a creep, she will. If you act like it's no big deal and you believe it, then it isn't. That's something that took me a long time to learn. Very, very important. Anyway, let's go back to the presentation here. This is Chevy Chase. He's so the reason I put a picture of him, it's kind of a long story, so I'll try to be really quick. But anyway, he was on Saturday Night Live. Abundance mindset. That's the word I was trying to think of earlier. Abundance mindset. Anyway, so yeah, he was on Saturday Night Live, 1975. Saturday Night Live releases the biggest show on TV. Never been anything like it. People are going crazy about it. And Chevy Chase is the biggest star of it. Now, the reason I showed him is because I saw an interview with him, or maybe I might have read it. I don't remember. Where they asked him. It took place in 1975. The interview, and they asked him, like, hey Chevy, Saturday Night Live, he hosts the Weekend Update, and they're like, how do you go on this TV show that's live, and you have this studio audience and these cameras, and there's millions of people watching, and you're so calm and you're so funny. How do you do that when it's live, knowing all those things? And he said something that stuck with me. And he said, all I do is I look into the camera and I imagine my two best friends sitting on a couch watching the show, and everything that I do is done to make them and myself laugh. And that's it. And it's something that I was like, man, that is the perfect analogy with socialization as well. And it has to do with marching the beat of your own drum, being calm, cool, and collected. Everything is about entertaining you and your friends and your reality, your worldview, right? Which, of course, you're the center of. Because if you can do that and you believe it, people buy into that. And now they're buying into a reality in which you are the center of. And it's not necessarily about this, this idea of like, oh, it's, you should be selfish and be the center of your own world or anything like that. It's more has to do with that it's someone who has confidence and understands his own world that he's at the center of, and that requires a certain amount of respect for the most part. Anyway, I love that quote, which is why I put him in here. But I go into a whole thing, which I'll probably get into as a point here actually, so I'm not going to say it yet. But anyway, abundance mindset. I already talked about it. That's essentially this idea that you have so many options that you don't care. You should always have that. I have a lot of options. You guys aren't there yet, but do it until you are. So have an abundance mindset until you actually have abundance, and then it'll come naturally. Being unreactive. So this has to do with when people say things that sometimes are if they're like expecting a reaction from them, like when girls be purposely mean or crass, or they try to do a dig at you, or even guys that they're trying to get a reaction out of you, always being unreactive. That's a sign of a confident guy, by the way. A guy who's super unreactive. I'll throw up some videos on the Facebook page of what I mean by this, which you guys can remind me if I don't do it, but I'll throw some up there. But essentially, it's just pausing before you act and looking them in the eye. Speak softly and carry a big stick. I can't remember who said that. I don't know if it was Churchill or who it was, but the idea behind this is that, and this kind of goes with the other one, being unreactive. A confident man and someone who's really sort of you wouldn't want to cross is the guy that's like that. Speak softly and carry a big stick. I think it was that quote. It was like, "There's three things I fear in life, and it's a night with no moon, a sea and storm, and a gentleman who's lost his temper," or something like that. I think it was Ernest Hemingway or something said it. And the idea is that those are the scariest guys, and that's what you should be like. You should be 100% sweet and nice, and think the best of people until they cross you. And then once they cross you, that's when the big stick comes out. I just realized that I've been on my face the entire time. I'll go back to this thing. So speak softly and carry a big stick. Women are not the audience. Okay, so this is the point I was getting at with Chevy Chase. Women are not the audience. And this is the problem that a lot of guys have. They go up, and whether it's women or whether it's at work or whether it's any sort of socialization at a party, at a mixer, or whatever, they think that the people they're talking to are the audience, and they try to impress them. They try to dazzle them. And that's actually a sign of insecurity, to be honest. And it's not just like me having studied this picks up on that. It's most people pick up on that. So it's not that women are the audience or that people are the audience. You are the audience. That's the switch you got to make. They are not the audience. You are the audience. So what happens when you go to a group of people and you're the audience? It's kind of like the idea is, I want to see what the show is. Not to say that you should just walk up and be like, talk to me. But the idea here is that you're going to engage and see if these are nice people and cool people and interesting people. And you're going to assume they are. But if they're not, you're not going to be like, oh, and here's my next trick, da, 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 and try to impress them. You're just going to be like, cool, wow. It's kind of like, this is kind of a boring show. Well, I think I'm going to go check out the next show. Well, nice to meet you guys. See you later. And you go to the next show. It's sort of the implication when you come in that they need to win you over just as much as you need to win them over. It's a mutual thing. It's not one-sided. Because as soon as you take that approach, the bad approach, to seeing them as being the audience, that's a losing battle. They may like you because you're entertaining, but then as soon as you're not entertaining, you have no value to them whatsoever. And they will cut you out immediately. And it'll be weird. So there's a mutual thing. You got to come in on an equal playing field there. All right. You are the island in the sea of social insecurity. Here's the other thing. Everybody's insecure. Everybody is insecure. Here's my little graph I'm showing about this. This is the pit of social anxiety. A lot of guys, when they're out socializing, they feel like, and not just guys, women too, they feel like they're at this pit where when they're talking, everyone is standing above looking down at them. Maybe you felt like this. And they think, oh, geez, people probably think I'm an idiot. They're listening to what I'm saying, and it's terrible. And what they don't realize is that everybody is in their own pit thinking exactly the same thing. And so when you're in that pit looking up at those people, you need to understand that they're all at the bottom of their own pit looking down at you or everyone else in the group. Everybody is like this. So this was a big thing for me. I remember when I realized this, and this is not just me making this up, by the way. This is based on a psychological study that they did, and it's absolutely true. Most people are insecure in social situations, especially when they're meeting new people. So this idea that you have where you're sort of the only one in there that's insecure and everyone notices it, it's completely untrue. Everyone is insecure, and as soon as you know that, it almost allows you to take a breath and be like, okay, all right, I'm not the only one that feels this way. Everyone feels this way. And now that I know that, it's kind of like you're all in the same room naked together. You don't feel as embarrassed about it because now you're all on an even playing field. So just understand this. This is something I'll come back to in other modules going forward. The 6C, consistency. So we're still like way over time limit here, but I'll try to wrap this up. Getting an audience is hard. Sustaining an audience is hard. It demands a consistency of thought, of purpose, and of action over a long period of time. Bruce Springsteen, one of my favorite musicians. Big word here is action. Consistency, thought, of purpose, and of action. It's the problem. Most guys don't take action. They got the thought, and maybe even purpose, but they don't take action. And they certainly don't take action over a long period of time. They may do it once, and then they give up. Don't be that guy. Ringo Starr, I put a picture of him. Not really a good story, mostly just because he's super consistent. He's not a good drummer by anyone's standard. But the one thing he's really good at for drumming is that he's like a human metronome. He's super consistent. Never breaks beat. Anyway, so that was his redeeming quality. Not necessarily the best story for what we're teaching, but I just put it up there because I couldn't think of a better picture for consistency. Anyway, your word is important. When you say you will do something, you do it. Super important. You have to start being a man of your word. If you say, you know what, I'll be there, I'll meet you there, I'll pick you up, I'll be at that thing, you know, that performance, your show you're doing, be there. Do it. Not just with girls you like, with everyone that you respect and love. Your family, your friends, anyone. It doesn't even matter if it's someone you just met. If you say you're going to do something, do it. Hold your word. Keep it. Really important. I think any definition of a man should include that. It probably does. Your boundaries are set in stone and enforced when encroached upon. So you have boundaries that you set, and you don't let people walk all over them. If someone does something which crosses one of your boundaries, you tell them. Whether it's a woman or a man, it doesn't matter. You know, if a guy takes something too far, you say, hey man, you took that too far. You can't do that. And if he pushes it further, then you need to take further action. Maybe it just means leaving. It's not to say you got to punch or anything, but it means that you need to, you don't stand for that. So you need to take action. You do not engage in behavior or actions that go against your morals and values, no matter how tempting. If you're the guy that when you date a girl, and you know you love them and stuff, that you don't cheat on them, well then don't cheat on them. Don't lie. And I mean, there's a million things you can put into this as examples of this, but you should have morals, you should define them, and you should stick by them. And don't do things that go against your morals. That's a big part of being a man. You know, you're not a kid anymore. You can't just do things because they're fun, especially things that have consequences. And I know this might be preaching to the choir for some of you guys, but there are a lot of men that I meet that, you know, will engage in behaviors because they just lack self-control, or they can't help themselves. So you need to control that. So yeah, it means you don't steal your buddy's girls. Even if they're broken up, like if your buddy dated a girl and they broke up and she's flirting with you at a party and you've been drinking a little bit and man, she's hot and she wants to go suck your dick, you don't do it because you don't do that. You know, there's a code you need to have. And it doesn't matter how tempting things are, you just do not do that. All right, homework. Let's get into that. Nice picture of Al Swearingen. He's a character from the show Deadwood, another show I recommend you guys watching. There's like, I don't know, I think there was like 3 or 4 seasons of it, and each season had like 24-hour-long episodes. I remember I watched it all in like a week and a half. I essentially, literally like lived in Deadwood for a week and a half. That's all I did all day. Great show. Al Swearingen is like a super masculine, confident character in it. He's kind of a bad guy too, but worth watching. I want to be the guy who blank. Create 5 of these and live by them. Okay? And I want you guys to put a lot of thought into these. I want to be the guy who can what? I want to be the guy who can ride a horse, you know, sword fight, appreciate fine scotch, play the piano, learn several languages, sticks up for what he believes in, is always there for his son. You know, they're going to be personal to you guys. But make 5 of them and try to be specific. Don't be like, I want to be the guy who always goes after his dreams. Like, that's not specific enough. You have to be specific and live by them. Start introducing yourself to every person you know you'll meet again. Post stories in the group. So this is what I mentioned on the very first point I did, the very first page, I believe. Start doing this with everyone. Introduce yourself to every person you know you'll meet again. And I want you guys to tell stories of this, how it starts changing you, the interactions you have. Post them on the Facebook group. And lastly, research the videos, films, books, and people I mentioned in this presentation. So there's Tao Jeet Kune Do, which is the book by Bruce Lee. I didn't really talk about it too much, but it's a great book. There's a lot of philosophical sort of Taoist scriptures in the beginning that I think are really good. My Wicked, Wicked Ways, which is the book by Errol Flynn. I recommend that. Not to say that I want you guys to have read all these things and seen all these things before the next course, but certainly make a point to start looking at these and maybe order it off Amazon or whatever. Marnie was the movie with it's the movie with Tippi Hedren and what's his name? James Bond. I can't remember his name. Tombstone, as the show just mentioned. Mr. Rogers. Tombstone is the movie earlier, and then Dead was what I just mentioned. And that is our homework for today.